he just say? People recognize him as a true great of our time. These are things it's very hard to come back from. Well, is this the end of Mo Salah at Liverpool? Is this how this storied career is going to end? I do think it's an important point to note that he apologised to his teammates.
And not to Arnie.
Not to Arnie, not to the world, not to the public world. If you ask me what I think is going to happen from here on in.
السلام عليكم يا جماعه، ده فيديو مهم جدا جدا جدا. اول انترفيو مع القناه هو انترفيو مع ستيوارت، صحفي انجليزي في ليفربول، وده على حد علمي اول انترفيو في الوطن العربي مع صحفي فعلا مطلع على الحوار ده كله من البدايه ويعرف معلومات احنا مش عندنا. شايف ان هو لسه ما زال من المهم جدا جدا ان احنا نعرف الصوره كامله. طبعا انا مدرك ان مصر في كاس الامم ولسه الموضوع مستمر، يعني هو موضوع طبعا ما خلصش، ولما يرجع ليفربول هيبقى لسه في الكلام كلام، ولسه احتمال يمشي في الشتاء، واحنا هنغطي كل الكلام ده يعني في الانترفيو. ارجو انكم تستمتعوا بيه. الحمد لله ان مصر كسبت جنوب افريقيا، وللعلم انا يعني في ظروف سفر حاليا عندي، يعني ما لحقتش اصور رد فعل على ماتش مصر جنوب افريقيا، بس وجب ان احنا نذكر الاداء المتطور جدا، وبالذات بعد 10 لعيبه. يعني شفنا جانب عن منتخب مصر رائع ما شفناهوش كتير في السنين اللي فاتت. بس طبعا من اهم الفيديوهات ان لم يكن اهم فيديو في القناه. طبعا ستيوارت بما انه يعرف حاجات اكتر مننا، فاحتمال يبقى عنده اراء مختلفه عن ناس كتير من اللي هتتفرج على الفيديو ده. انما ده عادي لان هو صحفي، هو يعرف اكتر من معظم الناس. انما اللي عايزكم تعرفوه ان هو يعني بين الاخبار وارجو يعني انكم تستمتعوا بيه وتعرفوا وجهة نظر، او مش وجهة نظر، معلومات عشان اكون اكثر دقة، معلومات جديدة او مختلفة تبين لكم الصورة اكتر عن محمد صلاح وعن ليفربول. سيبوا رايكم في الكومنتات وبس، يا رب تكونوا بخير، استمتعوا.
That's one of my favourite things. I don't know if you saw the BBC documentary they did.
Yeah.
It came out. So I was in that as well.
Oh, you were in the documentary about Mo Salah.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance to watch it yet. And I honestly, the Mo Salah thing came out like right after the Arne Slot stuff.
So the funny thing about that is that when I recorded it in October, in fact no, September was when I recorded it, they said that the plan was for it to come out the Christmas week. So it was meant to come out around now. And then when all of that stuff broke, they moved it up.
Ah.
Yeah.
So were they planning it to maybe around AFCON then?
Well, I think so. I think it was planned for it to be when he was away at AFCON, but also Christmas time is the time when people generally have a little bit more time to sit down and watch those kind of things. So it made sense for that to be the time for it to drop. I actually was slightly concerned that they might maybe not want to release it, because at the time a lot of the press around it was kind of negative. But it seems like they kind of went with the no publicity is bad publicity kind of angle and thought, well look, everyone's talking about Mo Salah, so let's talk about Mo Salah as well. Here's this hour-long documentary all about him. And it kind of made sense when you think it in that way, because a lot of the things that people discussed about him in terms of his ambition, his drive, also the history of him as a footballer and how he's got to this point, all became very relevant when you start to factor in what he was saying and maybe some of the reasons why he was saying it.
Maybe some of the reasons why he was saying it. Whoa, that's a spider. Well, let's get a napkin, I think.
We got a nice little guest here. See,
Hello.
Everyone wants to talk about Mo Salah.
Yeah, can you hold the mic for me?
A few moments later.
No, I mean, I'd have been happy for him to chill, but I think when the food came, it might have made it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this again. Well, we're here. This is Mo Stewart. This is the elephant in the room. We were just talking about Mo Salah there, and there's a BBC documentary. In case you didn't know, it came out only a couple days ago, and it came out. That's really fascinating stuff that you say. Like they rushed it out just because of he's the topic. Because he is arguably the greatest. We are biased here, and we're actually recording this from an Egyptian restaurant as well. There's a Mo Salah Liverpool like poster from 2017-18 right over there. And yeah, we are very biased here, but Mo Salah is the greatest footballer in the history of the Premier League. I genuinely believe that. And so the things that came out from him, understandably, have generated that much discussion. But what I'm really excited by today is just to have... I've avoided content around that. I've avoided watching the Anfield Wrap. I've avoided watching the Redmond TV because I've been subjected to a lot of Jamie Carragher and a lot of James Spears, and I've had my blood boil enough that I just don't want to. It's probably not a great thing not to, or to be afraid of hearing the other perspective just so it doesn't sound so ridiculous to you. But a few weeks have passed now, and I'm super excited to get someone's perspective that actually has some insight, that is inside the club and that attends the press conferences and like asks Arne Slot the questions. You're the one that asks him all the stats questions, but I would say you're an insider. You have your connections and you have your insight.
I was at Leeds while he was doing.
Were you at the?
So no, the funny story about this is that while this was happening, I was actually having an exclusive interview with Virgil van Dijk.
That hasn't come out yet, I don't think.
No, well, no, it's on my Substack page. You can have a look at it there.
Check it out.
And the reason why it was an exclusive interview is because everyone else was listening to Mo Salah talk. So I'd been in another part of the mix zone, talking to the Leeds manager, because my remit goes beyond just Liverpool.
Yep.
I have to cover all of the northern football clubs in the Premier League. So I thought I needed to get an interview with the Leeds manager. While that was going on, I came around the corner, Virgil van Dijk standing there. And the good thing about Virgil is that he will always talk to the press. He will always, as captain, he sees it as one of his duties to always make himself available. So I said, "Hey Virg, you've got a few minutes?" And he was like, "Are you the only one here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am the only one here. I don't know why." And so we had a little chat, and I think it was quite good actually, for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And I was like, I've got to go into the press conference room. So I was there bouncing into the press conference room thinking, hey, I've just got this brand new exclusive from Virgil van Dijk that no one else can over. And then I walk into the room, and I don't know if you've seen the meme of Donald Glover where he walks into the room. Oh yeah, that was that's exactly what happened, because I went in there talking about Virgil van Dijk and everyone was like, "Have you heard what Mo Salah has said?" And I'm like, "Mo Salah? No. What did he just say?" And then it was relayed to me what he just said, and I was, wow, because as most people know, Mo Salah doesn't talk very often.
Yeah.
So Mo Salah always talks when he has something important to say.
Can I point out that, well, the previous time Mohamed Salah obviously spoke was at Southampton.
Yes.
Last season, scored a late winner, scored a brace. It was a very difficult game, and then he used that as an opportunity to sort of publicly express that he really wants to renew and that conditions haven't been met, really. So that's an important bit of context, because he genuinely doesn't ever talk to the media. So yeah, it was obviously going to be very interesting when he stepped into the mix zone.
Yeah, it was, and that's why I was kind of shocked when he did come in and speak, because my first instinct was, well, what is he going to talk about? And then you realise the fact, well, he didn't get on this game.
Yeah.
So you think, well, maybe he's going to be saying something about that. And as it turned out, that was exactly what it was. It was him expressing his disappointments at not being in the team, but also going much further than that. Because I think this is the thing when you've seen people who've been critical of Mo Salah. A lot of that criticism is about the fact that you don't air your dirty laundry in public, as they say in England. You don't talk about kind of dressing room things in public because it doesn't help.
Yeah.
But he went further than just, I'm upset that I'm not playing. He was basically accusing certain people at the club of trying to get rid of him. He talked about broken promises. So this went a lot further than just a disgruntled player who felt like he should be playing more. And I think that's a big part of why it was so seismic when it came out. And everybody seems that they need to have an opinion on it. And it's a difficult thing with Mo Salah because, as you say, he is such a legend of the club. He's such a legend of English football that everything that he says or does is going to be microanalyzed, it's going to be pulled apart. But also, there is an emotional reaction. And I don't think this is just from Liverpool fans. I mean, obviously, Liverpool fans are going to have an emotional reaction. Obviously, the Egyptian people are going to have an emotional reaction. But I think everybody who's known and loved Mo Salah is going to have that reaction. I've seen quite a few. I've had debates and conversations with people online who are fans of other clubs, who just love Mo Salah and just feel like he has been disrespected in this way. And that's the fascinating thing about this for me, is that you get a superstar footballer like Mo Salah. Oh, sorry, food's arriving.
A few moments later.
So, as I say, he's one of those guys for whom he transcends clubs. People recognize him as a true great of our time. And so, seeing what looks like it was going to be the end of Mo Salah, and that was the thing that came out of it. It was very hard to think that you could come back from something where he's essentially accusing people at the club of trying to get rid of him, saying he has no relationship with the current manager. These are things it's very hard to come back from. So you start to think about, well, is this the end of Mo Salah at Liverpool? Is this how this storied career is going to end? And there was a real sadness around that for me. But what it meant is that all of those emotions boiled up, and particularly in those first 2 or 3 days afterwards, it was very hard to get any kind of reasoned analysis of what was going on and think about why he's saying what he said and how much of it is true, how much of it is in his own mind, because he wouldn't be the first player to have perceived something that wasn't actually true.
And just to add a little bit of context of our time, current social media, you know, it's very tough to have reasoned discussion in today's online world, and I think it was all fueled by emotion. And I feel like in most social media debates, I feel like people sort of choose a side wholeheartedly, and I think that's mostly what happened with people. Is I've seen Liverpool fans online that undoubtedly have enjoyed Mohamed Salah's contributions over the last 8 seasons, and they're like sort of discounting everything he did for the club just because the club, whatever that means, by the way, is sort of above anything else. And he can leave now. And I just want to ask you, like, is it necessary to take a side here? Or do you see this as one side has acted incorrectly in one way and one side has acted incorrectly in the other way? That's the way I see it, because I feel like Arne Slot is at fault. Arne Slot essentially, I don't want to say lied, but the things he said don't match up with reality, which is, he said before the game against Fulham that he was rotating Mohamed Salah for fitness. And that didn't end up being the case. Whether there is something that happened between West Ham and the following game from Mo Salah that we don't know about, then that changes things slightly, but that is just not what ended up happening. But Mohamed Salah, I would say, the idea itself to go after the club like that is one thing, but also to do it at this point just before AFCON. Egypt just beat Zimbabwe with a Mo Salah winner in the 91st minute yesterday, but I felt like it would be a huge distraction from AFCON, and thank God that, Mo Salah apologized, and Curtis Jones came out to say, Sky News interview, that Mo Salah apologized. Otherwise, I don't think it would have been the best thing for Egypt in AFCON.
No. Although, I do think it's an important point to note that he apologized to his teammates.
And not to Arnie.
Not to Arnie, not to the world, not to the public world. So right. He apologized within the dressing room. So whether Arne Slot was there or not, I don't know. But it was not a public. It didn't require him to walk back any of the things he said in the interview. I think from reading between the lines of what Curtis Jones said, the apology was to the players for causing more drama at a time, as you say, that was unhelpful because of where Liverpool were. To go back to what you were saying about the taking of the side thing, I think part of that comes from the fact that Salah was so strong in his terms against people at the club and against the manager. So it became, are you on Salah's side or are you on Slot's side? At a time when Slot's position was more perilous than it had ever been in his tenure. So that's why I think some people who wanted Slot out were automatically going to stick with Salah. And then there were some people who maybe didn't necessarily like Slot, but were very much like, this is clearly a ploy to get rid of the manager. They kind of buckled at that. They kind of felt like people in Liverpool in particular, the match-going fans, the people in the city, they do like to think that they have a bit of a code of conduct in terms of how you carry yourself. And the whole stuff about no man is bigger than the club, that kind of feeds into that. So anything where someone appears to be putting their own ambitions ahead of the collective ambitions, they instantly balk at that, or they maybe come back from that. Whether or not they agree with what the basis of what he's saying, the fact that he's saying it and at the time he's saying it is what causes the conflicts. I am like you. I think that there is probably fault on both sides. What I would also say though, and this might be the hardest part for everybody, including Mo Salah, to hear, a big part of the reason why he's not been playing as well for Liverpool is because the Liverpool team is no longer set up to serve him in the way he was previously.
There's a whole can of worms.
Which is, and there's two ways you can look at it. You can say, number one, when Liverpool agreed to give him this brand new contract and sign him for so much money, you'd have thought that having committed that much money to him, they would still want to be able to use him. They would still want to be able to get the best out of him. The flip side of that, though, is that having spent upwards of nearly £300 million on 3 brand new attackers who are going to be at Liverpool longer than Mo Salah, you'd understand if the club were like, we need to now set up the team to get the best out of them. They are now the priority, no, you aren't. And I think that confusion / differential is where a lot of the issue lies for me. I think Mo Salah feels like when they gave him the contract, that was a tacit kind of understanding that he would still get to be the main man. Whereas I'm not 100% sure that was ever the case. So if they had said that explicitly to him, then they can be the broken promises you're talking about. If he just assumed it because of the contract, that's a different matter. These are the nuances that we on the outside don't yet fully understand. But I do think over time will become clearer.
We shall see. And these are the nuances that you really want to hear from someone that actually knows what might go on inside a club. Fans in general just have this surface level view of everything. Well, Salah signed this contract for $400,000 a week, and he surely knew he was going to start, and then now he isn't. I look at it from a tactical point of view, where if it was so successful last season, the change was way too drastic, and I think that is primarily the reason why Liverpool are having all these problems, regardless of the Mo Salah situation. And Salah was dropped. If the dropping of Salah was because of the results and needing to try something new, that's actually fine, because we'd lost 3-0 to Forest at home and then 4-1 to PSV. Something had to change, and dropping Mo Salah might be a way to do it, but it's clear to me, and we don't know the nuances, that it probably wasn't communicated to him in a very good way.
I think this is a very important point as well, because Slot said that he spoke to him after the Sunderland game.
Sure.
And the reports that we first heard immediately after the interview said that his demeanour changed when he found out he wasn't starting against Leeds. So, whether he feels like whatever conversation was had after Sunderland didn't tally up with the idea of him not playing at Leeds, and maybe that was what sparked it. But you also have to remember that he came off the bench against Sunderland. He didn't start that game, but he came off the bench at half time, pretty much the earliest possible juncture. And again, it wasn't his best performance, but these could be down to a lot of the reasons I was just talking about in terms of the way the team's set up right now.
Yeah.
It's, if you ask me what I think is going to happen from here on in.
That is literally my next question.
Yeah. Well, I think if Liverpool were thinking seriously of selling Mo Salah in January, I think Alexander Isak's injuries changed that. I think what is now more likely to happen is Mo Salah remains at Liverpool until the summer. I think a lot of the clubs who would look to try to buy Mo Salah, whether they be in Saudi, whether they be here in the US, would have a better chance after the World Cup of putting together a package that he would be amenable to. I also think that having had 2 international tournaments with Egypt, hopefully one of which had been extremely successful, then he might suddenly be in a position where he thinks, okay, I can now move on from European football. I can move on to the next phase of my career and my life. I think right now, Liverpool still needs him, and I think he still wants Liverpool. And those are the things that I think will eventually see, even if it's only a temporary truce, there will be a truce, if you ask me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We'll see what happens. The Alexander Isak point is a really important one. But I also think Jamie Carragher, the only thing I've agreed with him on over the last 3 weeks is that Mo Salah won't want to leave now because he will feel like, and the club will feel that the club at large, like regardless of Arne Slot, that he deserves a bigger send-off than just coming back and like clapping the fans off and you know, end of season, last game of the season at home, do this whole like celebration of his career at Liverpool. And I think that's what will happen. I do agree that he's going to stay up until the summer. Let's get stuck into this food, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
All right. We'll see you on the other side.